Hello everyone, welcome back to the Zekko football channel. West Ham United seem to be on the verge of getting Manchester City's Kalvin Phillips on loan until the end of the season. But the big question is, how does he improve them? Today, we're taking a look. If you are new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe, you like the video, and you turn on those notifications because it really helps me out. But without further ado, let's get into it. Kalvin Phillips to West Ham United. It's a signing that just makes sense. He's 28 years of age, but he's not playing football for Man City, even though he's picking up trophies. He is playing as a midfielder, obviously, but he's only played 4 games from the last season. So, in my mind, there's not a lot of point in looking at his stats from Man City because he's barely played. I think in the 2 seasons that he's been at Man City, he's had less than 20 games for the club over those 2 seasons, and that's pretty ridiculous if you ask me. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at his time at Leeds. Leeds got promoted to the Premier League for the 2021 season. So let's have a look. He played, obviously, as a central defensive midfielder, and as you can see, his heat map really does dictate that. But he also has some spots further up the pitch, picking up more attacking midfield roles, and this is something that Gareth Southgate noticed in his time at England, because when Gareth Southgate played Kalvin Phillips, he played him a little bit further forwards. So you had the main central defensive midfielder, that was Declan Rice, you had one of the attacking midfielders in England's setup, and then you had Kalvin Phillips a little bit further on. Now Kalvin Phillips' role was to really drive on and start pressing against the enemy opposition. What this meant is that because of the way England set up, they were able to press teams just that little bit better, and that's something that has really bled into the modern game in the Premier League today. You see a lot of teams utilising this 3-man midfield role to be able to push on and start closing down space. Mikel Arteta does it, you've got Jurgen Klopp doing it, Pep Guardiola did it at certain times. These players are able to pick up pockets of space in between the lines to be able to push back the opposition defenders, and this is something that Kalvin Phillips I think is really good at, and something that I think he can be versatile with in this West Ham setup. As we can see, he's pretty much everywhere in this team. He was one of the main linchpins in allowing Marcelo Bielsa to really dictate his style on his side. They played 29 games in total, 28 of them were starts, and he was pretty fantastic in them. Although he didn't score in this season, defensively I thought he was quite good. He managed 2 assists, and these are the stats that I want to look at the most. 1.6 interceptions per game, 2.6 tackles per game. He won possession 0.4 times in every match, but his passing stats were very, very good. He has 85% accuracy per match, 90% accurate in his own half, 74% in the opposition half. Now that's something to really take note of. 74% is quite high, especially when you're thinking about the amount of pressure that Leeds would have been under. Kalvin Phillips is very good on the ball and he can find a pass whenever he needs to. Let's forward on to the next season, his last season with Leeds in the Premier League, and it's very much of the same. Yes, he's still playing that central defensive midfield role, but he still has the ability to go forwards. Maybe less so, you're seeing him pop up a little bit further forwards, less that. That's because of his lack of game time. Only started 18 games, only played 20 in that season. Injury has not been kind to him, but even so, he's able to drive forwards with the ball and just drive himself forwards even when he hasn't got it, to pick up pockets of space to help out his team. He's by no means an attacking midfielder by right, but he understands the game well enough to be able to help his team whenever he needs to and pick up those pockets of space to allow the ball to progress that little bit further forwards. If we have a look at his passing stats for the next year, where he has 82% overall accuracy per game, 90% in his own half, and 71%. So that's a little bit of a drop. It's a 3% drop from the season before, but generally still very good. He has 51% accuracy on long balls, 52% accuracy on chipped passes. So I'm thinking that playing over the top, trying to beat certain offside traps is something that he could be very useful with. Utilising the pace of Bowen, utilising the pace of Kudu to try and break through the lines. I'm thinking about West Ham up against Aston Villa or something of the like. It's utilising his skill set and his ability and range of passing, as well as his energy, his dynamism, to be able to push the ball further forwards up the pitch a little bit quicker. Now let's try and showcase him in this West Ham setup. I've got him here. I've got him here on the right hand side of a midfield 2. Now in this I've gone for a 4-2-3-1. Kalvin Phillips is part of this midfield 2 right here. Now, as you can see, he's right here next to Alvarez. I've got James Ward-Prowse as a central attacking midfielder. But what I could see happening really quickly, especially when West Ham have the ball in possession, I can see Phillips moving a little bit forward into the space that I've highlighted here. Paquetá out on this left-hand side can receive long passes whenever he needs to. Ward-Prowse could move across. And this is something that we've seen with Tottenham quite a bit. We've seen one of the holding midfield pivots just move forwards so that they have just two attacking midfielders to help with the pressing game, to help with the extra passes going forwards, to pick up pockets of space just outside the box. This occupies defenders and midfielders and allows West Ham just to gain that little bit more momentum. Obviously then he can drop back into his pivot position whenever he needs to, but at the same time, being that he's 28 years old, he might not want to do that, and that's absolutely fine as well. He's very good as part of a pivot. Generally, he's been playing by himself, so a little bit of help from a more defensive-minded player would really help him out and allow him to be the main dictator and creator. I think that he could be the main creator for this side. I think if you give him the tools, give him the players to really run off, if you see Paquetá spinning, if you see Kudus spinning, Bowen occupying the space up front, Kalvin Phillips will be able to find those passes. He'll be able to find those pockets of space, and it's just another set of legs to try and find that pass beyond. We know the way that David Moyes likes to play. We know that he's very comfortable about picking wide areas, driving inside, utilising pace, finding solutions to certain problems, and I think Kalvin Phillips, with his passing range, with his ability on and off the ball, will definitely give West Ham something different, something a little bit extra. He's very good at recycling possession, and that automatically will help West Ham retain the ball, even under pressure, giving them more of an air of responsibility, an air of authority against smaller teams, yes, but even against some of the larger sides. West Ham have started to punch a little bit harder, and in that, they're going to need to retain the ball a little bit more. The turnovers cannot be there, which means that Kalvin Phillips will be really helpful in retaining that possession, allowing them to drive forwards. Now, his deal is currently a loan, as far as I understand, with an option to buy at the end of the season. Now, it depends on what that option is, how much money it is, and how much Man City value him at. However, if he has a good time at West Ham, wouldn't be surprising if we saw him sign permanently for the Hammers, because I just think he's a cracking player. He hasn't been given enough game time. I think Guardiola understands that, but he's just not one of the players that he trusts. David Moyes, I think, can get a real tune out of him. His utilisation of players in different positions and his ability, particularly for Kalvin Phillips, to be able to drive that little bit further forwards and help out the attackers, I think is going to be absolutely vital. And then we're talking about Kalvin Phillips and this West Ham side. This West Ham side has a lot of power. It's got a lot of tall players, essentially. Alvarez is pretty tall. Aguerd, Zuma are very good at corners. You've got the likes of Ward-Prowse on corners as well. Kudu is pretty good in the air as well, albeit he's not normally in the box. But if we think about the player that Phillips will be replacing in the likes of Souček, I think that Phillips could also do a role in the box. He's tall. He's got physicality. He's got the ability and presence in the air to really start winning headers. And when you look at this midfield too, it's got power, it's got height, it's got aggression when it needs to be. You've got Ward-Prowse up a little bit further ahead to try and link the play. All of a sudden, West Ham look like a pretty well-balanced side. And if we take a look at the spine of the side in Fabianski, the two centre-backs, who are pretty strong, the two midfielders, who again have power, strength, the spine of West Ham's team all of a sudden looks quite good. And it will start to progress them forwards, definitely into the top 6 places, or vying and fighting for that, but maybe just establishing themselves higher up the top half of the table. This is how good I think Kalvin Phillips could be for this West Ham side, and it's only a matter of time, I believe, before he really starts showing his true quality. He just needs to be given a chance. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about how Kalvin Phillips will impact and improve this West Ham United side. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learnt something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.